Everything you believe is a lie. It's a useful lie, perhaps even a necessary one. But it is a simplified, distorted fiction. This idea has no easy answer. Brilliant people have built entire industries on this truth, while others have had their lives ruined by it. Both sides have a point, and both have consequences that reach into every corner of your life. Where do you stand? By the end of this, your answer might change. The debate begins with a defense of the lie. The defense of the map, reality, in its raw form, is an incomprehensible flood of information. It's a quadrillion inputs per second hitting your senses. To navigate this chaos, your brain performs a miracle of compression. It creates a map. This map filters, simplifies, and abstracts. It throws away 99.9% of the data to give you a version of the world you can actually use. Think of a subway map. It is a geographic fiction. It straightens curved tracks, equalizes the distance between stations, and ignores every single street, building, and park. If it were perfectly accurate, a one-to-one representation of the city, it would be the city itself. It would be useless. Its value comes directly from its inaccuracies. The map is a tool designed for a purpose, getting from point A to point B. The same is true for scientific theories, economic models, and even the words you're hearing right now. Each is a radical simplification that allows us to function. The concept of a rational actor in economics is a clear example. No human is perfectly rational, motivated only by logical self-interest. We are messy, emotional, and inconsistent. Yet, by assuming rationality on a mass scale, economic models can predict market behavior with a useful degree of accuracy. The map works even though it's built on a foundation of falsehood. Without these mental shortcuts, these maps, you would be paralyzed by the sheer volume of reality. Analysis paralysis. You couldn't make a decision. Your brain, therefore, evolved to be a master map maker. That sounds convincing. A powerful case for trusting our simplified models. But there is a fundamental problem. We forget we are looking at a map. This is where the model becomes a prison. The philosopher Alfred Korzybski famously stated, "The map is not the territory." A more visceral version is, "The menu is not the meal." When you start eating the menu, you starve to death, all while believing you are well fed. This happens when a representation of reality becomes more important than reality itself. It's a cognitive failure that scales from a single person to an entire civilization. Consider the modern corporation. A company might decide that customer engagement is its most important metric, a reasonable map. But soon, this measure becomes the target. This is Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. The product team is now incentivized to maximize that number, so they add endless notifications. They create frustrating loops that force users to click multiple times. They use dark patterns to trick users into engaging. The metric on the dashboard looks fantastic, the map is glowing, but the territory, the actual experience of the customer, is degrading. Users are getting annoyed. They're leaving. The company is successfully hitting its targets while driving itself into the ground. They are eating the menu. This confusion is the source of the 2008 financial crisis. Banks used highly complex risk models as their maps. These models, like the Gaussian copula function, were mathematically beautiful. They showed that bundling thousands of mortgages together made them safe. Their map said that a nationwide collapse in housing prices was virtually impossible. But the territory was a messy, interconnected web of predatory lending, fraudulent ratings, and perverse incentives. The bankers, regulators, and investors all stared at their elegant maps, which promised safety. They mistook the model's clean probabilities for the world's messy reality. When the territory inevitably asserted itself, the map didn't just bend, it shattered, taking the global economy with it. The most dangerous map of all is the story you tell yourself about who you are. And that story has walls. Maybe a teacher told you once that you weren't a math person. Maybe you failed at a public speaking event in high school and drew the conclusion, "I'm shy." Or perhaps you had one early success and decided, "I'm a natural leader." These are maps. They are crude summaries of past events, sketches of a personality, but you start to believe they are the territory. You begin to defend the map. If you believe you're shy, you'll avoid parties. You'll turn down promotions that require presentations. You choose actions that confirm the map, strengthening its lines, deepening its colors. You build a prison out of a preference. Your identity, which feels so solid, is often just a well-worn map you've mistaken for yourself. The solution seems obvious. Get a better map. Be more aware. Constantly check your assumptions against the territory, but the debate gets deeper and stranger than that. The very act of making a map can change the territory you're trying to map. This concept is called reflexibility. It's the idea that our observations and beliefs about a system are part of the system itself. They influence it. Imagine public opinion polling during an election. A poll is a map of public sentiment, but the moment that poll is published, it alters the territory. Some voters might see their candidate is losing and decide to stay home, thinking their vote is wasted. Others might rush to support an underdog. The media will frame their coverage around the poll's narrative. The map of public opinion actively reshapes public opinion. The snake eats its own tail. Nowhere is this more violent than in financial markets. A famous investor publishes a thesis arguing that a stock is undervalued based on a new valuation model, a new map. Other traders see the logic, adopt the map, and start buying the stock. The price goes up, confirming the model's prediction. The map creates its own reality, for a while. But if the map's logic is too detached from the underlying business, the territory, the bubble will eventually pop. The system collapses precisely because everyone was using the same good map. The belief in the map was the very thing that made it unstable. Your beliefs are active forces. They are interventions. Every prediction you make about the future, especially one you share, subtly alters that future. So what is the real disagreement here? Few people would argue that the map is the territory. The true conflict is practical. It's about how to act in a world where all our tools for understanding are flawed. This conflict creates two opposing philosophies. On one side, you have the pragmatists. They argue that we should trust the maps that have proven to be useful over time. Our institutions, traditions, and scientific paradigms are maps that have survived decades or centuries of testing. They are imperfect, yes, but they provide stability. The pragmatist says you don't burn down the whole city just because one street on the map is mislabeled. You stick with a model that is 95% right and manage the 5% of exceptions. To them, constantly questioning every map leads to chaos and inaction. They see the map as a tool. No, a weapon. A weapon against the entropy of raw reality. They value a map's utility over its perfect accuracy. Stability is the goal. On the other side, you have the revolutionaries. They argue that allegiance to old maps is a form of intellectual cowardice. The territory is always changing. Technology evolves, cultures shift. What was a useful map yesterday is a dangerous dogma today. The revolutionary believes that the 5% error in the pragmatist's map is where all the injustice and all the opportunity lives. They argue for constant skepticism, for aggressively updating, and for being willing to burn the map entirely and start fresh. To them, a map is only useful the moment before it becomes a cage. Accuracy is the goal, even if it brings instability. This is the hidden source of so many of our fiercest political and cultural debates. One side is trying to preserve a map that has historically provided order and prosperity. The other side is pointing to the parts of the territory that the map ignores or crushes, demanding it be redrawn from scratch. Both sides believe they are being rational. Both believe they are fighting for a better world. They are just using two completely different and incompatible maps to navigate the same territory. You are left in an impossible position. If you trust your maps too much, you risk living in a fiction. You end up eating the menu, optimizing for a metric that is killing your business, or living inside a self-imposed cage of identity. Your life becomes a well-managed illusion, right up until the moment it shatters against the rocks of reality. But if you try to live without maps, you are lost. You face the blinding, paralyzing complexity of the raw territory with no tools to guide you. One path leads to dogma, the other leads to paralysis. There is no safe middle ground, because the very ground beneath your feet is being shaped by the maps others are using. So what do? Your entire life is built on a stack of maps. Maps about your skills, your relationships, your health, your country, and your own identity. Each one is a useful, powerful, dangerous lie. Where do you draw the line? When does a useful shortcut become a gilded cage? And how would you even know from the inside?